Oh, good evening. It is very nice to finally be here on this red dot. I have been traveling this planet for a long time, and the theme tonight of disruption is honestly perfect for me. My business, our business, with my business partner Bill and I, we go around the world and we create disruption. And my hope right now is that the disruption for you and for anybody watching is in here and in your heart and in your mind. Because that is where the most important disruption begins. And as I tell you about the disruptions that I've been through in my life, personal, professional, and so forth, I hope you get a sense of the passion that I feel for the need for disruption. Now, the weird part about all of that is that our life kind of plays a role, it plays a trick on us that says we want predictability. Our physiology wants predictability. Right now, I can feel myself in disruption. I can feel my heart beating and my pulse is quicker than it was before. And honestly, the way that I want to respond to that is to say, I am here to do my very best TEDx talk ever, and I expect greatness from it. I want to do my very best. I want to pour myself out. And in 17 and a half minutes that I have left, I hope that I have a few minutes with that little voice in your head. Raise your hand if you have a little voice that talks to you, the one in your head. Uh-huh. Exactly. Everybody has one, and some of you out there are going, what little voice? What's he talking about? And that is the voice that I'm talking about. Okay, so as we dive into that, and that's the voice that fights disruption. That's the voice that in a moment, it jumps to you and says, do it. And then you pause and think, well, I'm not sure. And the most interesting thing, although I have spent so much time traveling and learning from people, and some people say, oh, you're a motivational speaker. And I always say, well, we like to give people something to think about, something to feel, and something to do. Because it's not just enough to hit you up here. And I'd be more accurate to say, well, if I'm a speaker, that means I'm just talking. And I'd rather be a motivational feeler. Like, I want you to feel something. I want you to feel that it's deeply personal for me, that this moment we have together is valuable. And that somehow we're going to leave the planet a little better. Now, as we go through the world and we see ourselves and the internet and the way that it's blowing up, I look at my kids and I think, wow, do you think you matter less? Because everybody on the planet knows everybody on the planet? Different than when you had a village of 12 people and thought, today I matter because these 12 people know me. And as I'm diving into the way that people respond, I think about my own experience. And as I've been traveling around, we found ourselves in a place where from our disruption and our creativity, we have put 18,000 bikes under kids in underprivileged parts of our world and in the United States. And we've been a part of putting 17,000 prosthetic hands on people in now 80 countries. And how could a little kid from Grass Valley do that? And its disruption and the appetite for it. And how are we going to struggle with that little voice in our head that says, wait, get comfortable, choose the path of least resistance. This photo here, the boy in pink is my son. And he's dressed as a cupcake because that's what he wanted to be for Halloween a few years ago. And as we brought out the costumes and we gave him the choices, he put his little hand, I want to be that. And my wife and I, of course, we spend most of our time trying to teach him not to be disruptive, which is a problem, I think, because here he's in this little outfit and he's with some of his good friends and they're making their way around. I'm so proud that he's a cupcake. Now, this last year, on Valentine's Day, he wants to paint his fingernails red. And his friends laughed at him. And he came home and cried to us. And I thought, as the fork in the road started, will he choose the path of least resistance and to disappear? Or will he continue to be disruptive? And go, but I want to paint my fingernails red. This image here, this other man going over this wall. A few months later, he committed suicide. High school student. Because his world disrupting his emotional self so much. And for all of us, as we sit in our little comfort zones and we build this protective world around us, yet we feel this call. Now, the world, it won't let us do that. It says, no, here's an off-ramp. I'm going to give you something that's going to shock you. I'm going to give you something to think deeply about. Now, we can protect our kids. You can see my daughter there with every protective device you could imagine as she's skating around the yard. And somehow my son, with my mom there, survive kindergarten. They graduate and they go on to the next step. But what now? Disruption comes. And I look at these disruptions as an invitation to grow, like a snake as it sheds its skin. But we had this resistance to it because as a kindergartner, if you're a bunch of students out there, and I said, who wants to go next? You all raise your hand like, oh, I want to go next. Because in kindergarten, if your teacher says, what's 2 plus 2? And you raise your hand and you say 5, your friends smile at you like you got it right. It doesn't matter. But in the 3rd grade, as you grow up and they say, what's 2 times 2? And you get it wrong. And your friend looks at you and says, are you a loser? Are you stupid? And in that emotional disruption, in that moment, our genetic code or our system preference is on auto-save, and it says, don't do that again. Don't take a risk. Don't answer the call with your hand boldly up. And by 12th grade, we end up sitting in the back, and 7,000 high school students a day drop out just in the United States. They go from that kindergartner that, remember this emotion? Remember that? And remember you'd switch your arm, you didn't care. You were ready to go full out because something good happened next. But disruption came. And we put it in the wrong category. We put it in as something negative when really it's a gift that says enough with the status quo. Change your life. And for me, it came and led to these hands and these bikes and this business and what I do now, which is basically teach people to take risk, to go outside of their little bubble of comfort zone. And for me, when I got too comfortable, when I was a kid, I was looking for that path of least resistance. And you know what happened to me? My youth pastor's wife came to me. I was just a typical little church kid, and I found my way on the church bus, and we were headed somewhere. And she looked at me, and she said, God's going to do something special with your life. She might have said it to every kid on that bus, but I believed it. And I hope someone has looked you in the eye and told you something special about you. You have a voice to contribute. You have something, because even the admittance that I have a purpose means that I have a purpose. That you have something, some reason for being here tonight in this presentation. And that you're the smallest sliver of people that have not given up on making a difference. That the world hasn't somehow beat that out of you. And as I started to search for that, what would that be? And I struggled through school. I ended up dropping out of college, a big disruption of my family, and what would happen. And I went back, and I was Distinguished Alumni from my university. I got back on track, but I could have never done that without this disruption. And when I actually got fired from my job at a racket club, I thought, oh, this is my dream. But I was collaborating with my now business partner on some scheme to go to North Dakota and change people's lives. And I was drawn to it. I couldn't resist. And ultimately, one of the biggest disruptions is this: I got cancer. Tonsil cancer right here to stop me. To pause. We all get these invitations. And we see them as negative. But if you stop right now and you look backwards, you see the perfection in them. So if I see them in that kind of confidence, I should look forward and think that it's perfection, that it's somehow some divine series of events that are going to play to my best. Even if they're difficult, even if they almost kill you. But in that struggle is when we live at our greatest level. And somehow it ravages us sometimes. We feel weak, but we can come back from that. We can be better than we were before. The people we love rally to support us. Now as I stand here and start to share this amazing dream of what's happened in my business from the disruption. Back in the late 1999s, before Y2K hit and everybody was all worried that our computers and our cars were going to stop and all that stuff, our business was doing okay. We were doing leadership development and ropes courses and team building things and stuff all over the world, and we were okay. But one of our business partners was stepping out. There were 3 of us, and it was a really difficult time. We love people, we love leadership and learning, and we couldn't hold our own company together. And at the same time, a client made a request to us. This client said, do something that's never been done before. That's what I need you to do. And my business partner, Bill, and I, we got together and we took the challenge. We said, okay, what's never been done before? Well, we were kind of weekend warrior builder guys, and we're like, hey, let's build something. Instead of just talking about teams building something, let's make teams build something. And so we got our creativity, and we found ourselves at Home Depot in Florida with a line of cards trying to figure out how are we going to build 50 dog houses in about 3 hours with 300 people. And we figured it out. And that client looked at us and said, That was incredible, and we knew it was because we had kids come in and we auctioned the dog houses and we called it Habitat for Hounds, and it was amazing. I mean, we brought Disney characters in, we were crafty. And from that he says, I'll take you around the world, but you got to do something a little more portable. What could you do? And we thought, what could we do? Of course we know what we could do, right? The disruption of our comfort zone, what we did, we said, well, we rode bikes in college, let's build some bicycles. And you know what we'll do? We'll have the kids come in and disrupt the training world with reality. Let's catch them being themselves in their mediocrity and their sense of, I'll just hide and I'll sit in the back of the training and maybe I'll text somebody or I'll just sort of disappear back here because there's 500 people and I don't matter. And as they're building their bike in teams of 5 and thinking, that's pretty good and the brakes are all right. And then we say, great, time to present. Here come the kids. And they quickly grab their tools. And they get back to work, the first team done. Moments earlier was like, yeah, we're the best in the room. Where are you settling like that? Because you forget that everything you do matters. Now, I was told once that if you look in a microscope or you look in a telescope, it's impossible to tell which has the grander view. That boggles my mind. And I think if I'm going to do something great like I was promised as a kid, and I set out on this odyssey, this journey, I thought, does it matter if it's in front of 5,000 people or in front of 5 people or a minute with my son or my daughter? Which has the grander view for you? Maybe you're mistaking your disruption and your impact on the world because it's not grand enough, because you're judging it based on some perception and some controlled version of what your impact will be like. That's a disservice to you. But we spend so much time up here, not enough time in here, knowing that it does matter. And as we built these bikes and the kids came in, and we knew we had done something amazing. And we knew these kids, we had changed their life. They walked in and saw corporate people who cared about them. They sat down with some grown-ups, maybe a kid who's displaced from his home, and we built him a bike. And then as we looked around, we thought, what could we do next to change the world? Well, my business partner in college had done a thing called the Greek streak because his roommate, his father, had Lou Gehrig's disease. It's an amazing, creative guy that I get to share my business with. And we had done a fundraiser for women with cancer survivors and raised $50,000 for a group that to that point probably had only had $20,000 in 5 years of work. And we thought, how can we continue this? And one day, I met some people who created this prosthetic hand, with the vision that this right here, this grip, could change lives. And I started asking questions and said, how many lives, how many people in the world need one of these? And we estimate now there are 800 to 900,000, maybe more, 30,000 people a year on this planet lose the lower part of their arm in some way. And that this device that comes to them free from our foundation could change their life. And I've sat in Colombia, in Istanbul, my business partner has been to India and parts of the world. We've put these hands on people. And we see a person come from in the village with their hand hidden like this, and they show up, and as we've placed this on them, they go from shame, this physical disruption, to the brand that they carry. But we started building these. Now, I imagine none of you have built a prosthetic hand before. So people had built bikes before. They'd built playhouses before and dog houses and so forth and skateboards and things that we would be building. But now we're building hands. So we put teams of 3 together and they have to wear something on one hand and they're collaborating to build this device. And they're all beginners. And as I look at my family, I look at tomorrow we are all beginners. We have a rich history of life experience that should tell us, and most of our expectation can predict what's going to happen. But I'd rather pause in the moment and dream that something could happen tomorrow. Something unexpected, something small that could change the world, my world, or yours. And there's too much evidence in my life that this kit, that this creativity, that this answer, that disruption was good in my life in so many ways, that if I challenge you to think of what are the disruptions you've faced that when you allow yourself to be reflexive about it, you think that they're bad. You think that they've stopped you, that they're the roadblock. that is keeping you from your best self, when actually they are the thing that is going to get you to that next level. That it's not about being comfortable. It's about being terrified, being okay with it. The perspective we have about these hands, and as we challenge these teams, and sometimes 4,000 or 5,000 people at a time building these hands, in a giant, and they get to decorate a bag that it goes, and we take pictures of them. We're trying to connect them to somewhere out there. Even if you're just building one hand, you're going to change one person's life and the person they care for. The other day I got a letter from a person who was able to get a job because of his hand, and he needed 2 of them. And that there are people on this planet that as they reach out for the world, they don't have what you have. Look at your hands now. And as I look at my hands, I can't help but see my Father's hands. They look like him. I act like him. But I have a dream that I can use these things to make him proud. My mom, myself. And if we just look around, we are given these gifts all the time, but we have our blinders on and we've been taught the lesson to put our hand down. And I am saying, put your hand up. Take a risk. Say that I have something to contribute. I challenge you as you look back and you look forward at these lives that are all around us, and the people that are here tonight, that as we walk by each other and we catch eyes with someone and we pretend it doesn't matter, or that it didn't really happen, and we have the chance to extend our hand, that these gifts, this might be our bridge to the next generation, to who we could still be. This picture here, it moves me so much. This woman, or I believe a woman in a full burqa, with one of our hands in this decorated case, and it says happiness on it. I like to believe that somewhere behind that is the biggest smile, that she feels joy, that somewhere out there in the world someone is caring for her, or this obviously this family that has been impacted, and this double amputee, that in our sessions we want to connect their head, their hands, and their heart. That it's not enough to just train people for training's sake, but that we hope to disrupt them, catch them being themselves in their reflexive patterns, and give them a yearning that they could have this kind of joy. As I close, I just ask you to think, look at your hands now. Do you have the courage to use your hands to disrupt your life? And most of this disruption that we need is right here, and follow it here. Thank you.